Joining me now is my good friend Elan Carr, former U.S. Special Envoy to combat anti-Semitism in the previous U.S. administration. You're also representing the Combat Anti-Semitism Group, Combat Anti-Semitism Movement, and you're also on a special delegation of ambassadors being led by current U.S. Ambassador to Israel Thomas Nides and former U.S. Ambassador to Israel David Friedman. You've been so active in the fight against global anti-Semitism. In your view, how important are programs like the March of the Living that bring thousands of people to physically witness the results of the most vile forms of anti-Semitism here at Auschwitz and other concentration camps?
Well, Alex, thank you for having me, and it's critically important because when you come to a place like this and walk the ground soiled with the blood of the Jewish people, you realize where this hatred can lead. And in order to understand how despicable, how dangerous, how destructive is this hatred that is anti-Semitism that's with us despite this happening recently, only 80 years ago, Jews were being exterminated right here where we stand, and yet anti-Semitism is with us. That's why it is so important that we come here, we experience this, and we say with one clarion unified voice, never again. And so I'm very proud to be here together with Ambassadors Nides and Friedman and representing the Combat Anti-Semitism movement in standing shoulder to shoulder with students and clergy and diplomats and leaders, all of whom are here to say never again.
Now, the Combat Anti-Semitism movement has been monitoring anti-Semitic incidents from across the spectrum, and in particular, you've identified threats coming from three distinct areas of the political spectrum, so to speak, which are the far left, the far right, and from radical Islam. Tell me, which of those do you think represents the most potent threat, and where should most of the effort be focused on fighting these threats?
Well, that's exactly right. You hit the nail on the head. What we're seeing is Jew hatred coming from three distinct ideological camps that, remarkably enough, find common cause in this hatred of the Jewish people, and that is the far right, which certainly is represented by Nazism, as we're here in this Nazi ground, but we have far right groups today that threaten the Jewish people, and the radical left, which is a tsunami of growing anti-Semitism that is spreading throughout circles of leadership on campuses. I mean, what Jewish students have to undergo going to school, the hatred, the vilification focused usually on Jewish peoplehood and certainly on the Jewish state is despicable and a serious threat to our future. And then, of course, militant Islam, which is a continuing problem. And so what I said when I was in my role as special envoy is, look, if you really intend to fight Jew hatred, you have to fight all its variants. You can't pick and choose. You can't underplay or ignore any of the sources. You have to fight all of them because, at the end of the day, Alex, if you leave 2/3 or even 1/3 of a tumor untreated, the patient doesn't do well. So you either fight all of it or you might as well fight none of it.
Well, the Combat Anti-Semitism movement and so many other groups now are engaged in the fight against anti-Semitism, and yet the tide of anti-Semitism continues and the number of incidents, soft and hard, are continuing to rise. What needs to be done that hasn't been done, and can all of these groups working together somehow find the cure once and for all for anti-Semitism?
Well, I think absolutely we can, and if I weren't optimistic, I wouldn't be in this fight. I really think we can roll back this scourge, not just contain it, but really roll it back and defeat it. But it's going to take a lot of work. It's going to, first of all, take unity. It's going to take Jewish unity, which we certainly need right now. It's in short supply. But it also requires all of us to join together and to understand what we're fighting against, but also what we're fighting for. And this brings me to the crux of it. You've got to defend against Jew hatred, but if all we do is defend against this, we're never going to win a strategic victory in the fight. A strategic victory requires an offensive, strategic weapon. And that's affirmatively driving a philo-Semitic narrative to champion what the Jewish people have brought to the world, the values of Judaism that have transformed civilization. And when we talk about that, we're defining the haters. Far from allowing haters to define the Jewish people, we're defining the haters as standing against everything we've brought to the world. And look, there are amazing stories to be told. Right here in Poland, where we stand today, is a remarkable history that the Polin Museum, for example, in Warsaw, is a gem in bringing this out. 900 years of Jewish history in Poland, which is a wonderful, beautiful, transformative history. It's the same story in Germany and in France and in England and in Russia and, yes, in the United States of America, countries transformed by the Jewish presence and by Jewish heritage that played such an important role in the life and in the very identity of these countries. That's what we have to start talking about. And until we really start driving philo-Semitism, we won't really win a strategic victory in the battle against Jew hatred.
Elan Carr, thank you so much. Take it away, Aaron.